There's a million ways I guess there's a million ways people approach building businesses, but there's three ways to do it. And it's, get more customers, get them spending more, get them spending again. It's the only three things. So anything that you're doing that doesn't directly correlate to one of those things, don't do it.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through accounting and consulting services. Now, this is season 2. The road to being the $1 million agency. And I had to go tap into my network, and I said, y'all, I need some people who's doing this at a high level. And so one of these people, they were like, hey, you got to talk to my guy, Justin. He's a cool dude. I've talked to him, and I believe good people know good people. So I'm going to let him introduce himself because, I don't want to hype people up too much, but I do, but I don't. So tell the people your name of the company, how long you've been getting into it, and then we're going to jump into the fun stuff.
Yeah, cool, man. So yeah, I'm Justin Rondo. I'm the president and co-owner at Invisible PPC. We're a white label ads agency that works exclusively with agencies in the local service space. We ended up purchasing this company almost 2.5 years ago now. So yeah, so we picked it up. It's been around for almost 12 years now total. So it's a pretty legacy brand when we picked it up, which is one of the reasons we were excited about it. But yeah, and then been running the ship since we picked that thing up. Yeah. So I think real straightforward there.
Yeah. All right. So you've had the business, you said, for 2.5 years now. Is that when you started becoming a business owner, or did you have something you were doing cool before that?
Yeah. So for me, I had such a weird journey into entrepreneurship. I think one of my old bosses, Ryan Dice at Digital Marketer, I was there for 7+ years, ran the company for a couple of years. I was always that entrepreneur. I was the one that would take on the entrepreneurial type projects while being too afraid to step out and go on my own for up until recently. My business partner, so I partnered up with somebody that's been in the space for, he's run his marketing agency for around 15+ years, working in the e-commerce side of things, fractional CMO type space, so full on consulting and those types of works. And he and I kind of crossed paths again at Traffic and Conversion Summit a few years back. He's like, hey man, really want to do something, let's do something together. Let's work together on a few things. And at that point in time, I had moved from digital marketer to running all growth and acquisition at a company called teamwork.com. And at first I wasn't that interested, but then I realized very quickly that large company, especially large SaaS companies, weren't really for me. I've always liked being kind of in the grungy kind of startup world, and especially working with agencies. So when Avi came to me with this idea of hey, what if we bought Invisible PPC? It's for sale. And we partnered up and took that thing on. And at that point I was like, you know what? I'm really itching to get back into the agency world again. Itching to get out of, venture-backed SaaS. And it was the kind of the offer I needed to get me out of intrapreneurship and pushed me over the edge to entrepreneurship.
Okay, we got a lot of good stuff there. First off, shout out to Digital Marketer. Shout out to Ryan Dice, because I went to Traffic and Conversion, not this past year, but in, I guess that would have been fall of 2022 when they were in San Diego. Yes, I went there. Great event, huge event, plenty of sessions. That's where I got to see the great Hormozy in person. It was a lot of good, man, he had some great speakers. But anyway, so shout out to him. So, okay, let's talk about this, because I think this is a very interesting transition, which probably shows, let's back up a second. Y'all know I got to do the brag section. So just to be clear, Justin is a successful entrepreneur. Invisible PPC is probably behind some of your favorite marketing agencies. And he knows what he's doing. We'll just leave it at that. Okay, now that we've established that fact, he's going to be super humble. We be having some humble guests. You see how, I was just they're serving 7 years, took over and ran it, took it to new heights. But let's okay, we painted the picture. Now let's go back. So okay, what would you say is the difference that you've seen in running digital marketer, even though you didn't create it, right? But you
Yeah.
still ran it versus now you come into this other company, bought in, but this one is like all you. This is yours.
The stakes feel so much higher, which is crazy to think. Like, because I mean, DM 8-figure business, a screw up could be monumental. You'd feel it, but you also kind of had a lot of the team structures, SOPs, those types of things in place to kind of like pull a ripcord where necessary. So while I think the bungles could be in the tens to hundreds of thousands of dollar impact, if not 7 figures. It wasn't my money, so there's that. So I think that you don't have, and you also don't have kind of the buck doesn't stop. Like now, the buck doesn't stop with anyone but me or my business partner, right? So there, like I could appeal to hey Ryan or hey Richard or hey this, like we're kind of shitting the bed. I don't know if I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to curse or anything on this. We're kind of not doing great.
But,
Yeah, apologies. I'll be good going forward. Apologies, but hey, we're screwing up on this one. We're gonna miss targets, and like then it's just kind of more of a matter of like, okay, like they'd be like the business feels the pain, whereas like when it's your business, like you almost feel that pain if like you're behind on targets and those things. It's a different feeling, and I think the level of responsibility. Like I've run large teams, small teams, anything in between, and when it's your company and you have kind of the teams on there, like there's a weird shift and it's hard to even articulate what that is in terms of like the almost extreme ownership that comes with it. Cause it's quite literally you own it. Right. So I think that was the biggest shift in that. I think I've kind of slowed down a little bit in terms of like what my risk threshold is lowered in terms of like what I'm willing to kind of almost make that gamble on when it's mine, which might be hurting, to be quite honest, like articulating that and saying that out loud. But I think it's been more of like lean in on tried and true. And yeah, kind of like being less experimental, which is, again, could be stunting growth, but I mean, we're doing pretty good. So I don't know if that's really the case.
Okay, that makes sense. Not you didn't have as much skin in the game versus now. Like,
yeah, it is the game.
There you go. Okay, now let's talk about this because you said you bought this business about 2.5 years ago.
That's right.
Now, this is a hot button topic. Like people are all about, ooh, how do I get my business ready to sell, or what do I need to look for? So I want to jump into it because this is relatively fresh. 2.5 years ago. I mean, that's 2022, maybe 2021. So tell us, when you bought this company, what were, let's just say, 3 things that made you want to buy?
Yeah. One was kind of the brand recognition in the agency space. The fact that it showed up organically for white label pay-per-click and white label PPC first beats everybody else out. And they'd be hard pressed to ever beat us at this point because it's been around so long. That was a big one. Like people knew, and then it was kind of verified more, the more like I kind of dug into the agency space, like going to more industry events, going to those things where like, I was in a line somewhere and someone was like, wait, you're Invisible PPC. I was like, well, I'm Justin, more than just Invisible PPC, but yes, I am. And so the fact that people knew the brand and knew that it was a reputable one to be working with. I think the book of business was strong and it was focused. So it had, solid MRR coming through. Everything's retainer based, which, awesome. So you're not doing one-off projects, anything there. And it just was focused. Like our whole belief is like focusing and dialing in on agencies that are working with local service companies. So we're not in the SaaS world. We're not trying to do ads for every single type of company because frankly, some of them aren't well suited for Google ads. Like it's at a very particular stage in the journey, where a lot of these local service businesses can really benefit from an agency who knows what they're doing, but what everybody knows is Google ads are difficult. People are scared to do them. They're high risk, and it's very expensive to have professionals on your team. So for me, I think I was attracted to the fact that the service businesses aren't going anywhere ever. In fact, they're booming. They're going to be increasing to boom. So if when purchasing a business that's in the agency world that supports agencies that work with what is a booming industry and what will continue to be, I think set us up for longevity, even if Google changes how their ads function, how they integrate AI or anything along those things. So I think it was a good future proofing for it being so hyper focused in the niches that it's in. So brand, the focus, and then obviously just I think the value, just really the billable, like the billings that we had in there were good too. So there was a lot of opportunity for us to grow it. And yeah, I think those are kind of the main things that made it attractive.
Okay, now everybody knows we take notes because we see the geniuses like you. Y'all just drop gems, just so like regular English. We got to slow it down for everybody else. Okay, now 3 reasons he said there was brand recognition, like everybody already knew who you were in the market. There was strong MRR, so you already were like, okay, the business is already making money. And then longevity slash like future proof. You know that marketing isn't going to go anywhere, branding isn't going to go anywhere. So these were 3 things that helped you to make this purchase. Now, we got to talk finances. So now a lot of people, how can I say this nicely? It's my podcast. I can say however.
Yeah, you can do what you want.
A lot of people like, well, finances are kind of like an afterthought thing. But in your case, that was something that you already had to have seen was operating at a high level to even know if it was worth purchasing. Can you go into like, I don't want to say why financials are important, but what did you in particular gain from looking at this company's financials?
Yeah, I think, well, one, they were working with a really good broker. So I think the broker coached them up on making sure that their financials were like scannable enough at the top, but also allowed us to go deep enough when we had questions about particular things. But really, I think what we were most interested in was like, obviously, what was the growth rate for the last couple of years? Was it showing growth? What was profit for that? Like, where were they actually making money versus what was gross revenue on top of that? Because you'll be looking at both of those. Really digging into cost centers. So, and having that all broken down so we can see like, hey, when we acquire the company, what are things that we already have covered from a cost basis, and how does that impact, how will that impact profits moving forward? And then some of that's going to be conversations about personnel. Others going to be about technologies, all those things. So like looking at where you have redundancies. So it was really easy for us to look at that there as well to, again, future cast a little bit better. But all right, well, bring this in, we can cut costs by this degree, which means we should see an uptick in profit almost immediately, right? So that was another thing that we were looking at. And then kind of some basic things in terms of, are we seeing like, what's churn rate looking like? What's the average length of a customer? How many customers, like how many end clients do those customers tend to have? And looking at like, where was their opportunity in the business? Saying like, hey, based off of kind of what exists currently, is that going to be like, do we intend to keep with that model where we're trying to go with maybe, a lot of agencies with very few end clients, or it helped us dictate in future casts like what we wanted to do with the business. So when we looked at the financials, it was one, where can we have an immediate impact on profit on with eliminating redundancies where it made sense. 2, what's growth looking like for the last couple of years? Like, is it consistent? Were they was it flash in the pan type promotions that didn't plan out? Or what could we dig into there? And really digging into those revenue figures. And then really kind of more individualistic looks at the average revenue per user and average length that people stayed with the company.
I love it. Okay, now let's go to this one because there's a little controversy around this one. So you have some people who say, I don't want to use any debt. I don't want to leverage it. I just want to stay cash only. And we all understand why, like, you just don't owe anybody. Then I've had some people that are closer to where you are in your journey who are like, I don't care what they say. Leveraging debt is the move because I get to keep my cash freed up. Yes, a small price
Mhm.
to pay, but look at my investment, rate of return, etc. In your opinion, because not only did you run an eight-figure company, but now you have a highly successful set none of y'all business company, but you got a highly successful one that fits the criteria of $1 million agencies.
Yeah.
How do you fall on that journey? Are you pro debt? I guess we should say, or are you
Yeah.
no cash only?
No, I think when people fall into like the cash flow camp, like that's an idealistic belief which works for some. I get it, cool, whatever. But I like leveraging debt correctly is an extremely useful way to grow when you get to a certain point. And one of those things, like, because we constantly still get we work with brokers and we constantly are looking at businesses to acquire, and then and some of them, like even if we're not in a position right then to like buy like from just total cash flow, like it's something to think about. Like, hey, like we know that purchasing a business, it's a cheat code essentially. It's almost like back in the day. I don't know if anybody listening to this like played a lot of video games, but there was like the game genie. The game genie, like you'd pay a fee, you'd get this thing, you'd strap it into a cartridge, and then oh man, like all your stats were better, right? Buying a business can do that for you, and debt is essentially you buying that game genie. In my opinion, like you can leverage that type of cash, make sure that you have still cash in the bank for things, knowing that like the in most things, if they're doing in the agency space, they're probably hanging around like a 3 multiple, something along those lines. So like in 3 years, you're debt free on that one, assuming you do nothing and you just maintain, and you wouldn't want to buy anything that you don't expect to grow. So I'm all for utilizing debt when you're getting to this stage, because there is a price. Yeah, you're paying a price, you pay a premium on that, but hell, like it's not something it's not something that you should get overly dogmatic about. I get the appeal of cash only, Dave Ramsey, woohoo, like let's go that route. But I think it's a more pragmatic solution to consider debt uh, at some of those stages. But yeah.
And you know what? Shout out to Dave Ramsey because he comes up on this podcast a lot. So
Oh,
Dave, we don't hate you. Shout out to you, but I do think it's very important to note, like you said, like running a business is completely different than personal finance. You
exactly.
have to, as we would say where I'm from, scared money don't make money. If you don't spend anything of any value, you can't expect to really surpass your goals. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you want to invest $10, I mean, you get lucky to get 100, maybe
Yep.
150. Like you want to buy a company that you think, man, I can take that brand to $1 million. You can't come in thinking I'm gonna only spend 50 grand. That may be 100, 150, or whatever, just to get
Mm-hmm.
the conversation moving. So I love how you emphasize leverage debt correctly, not
Mm-hmm.
just use it to do whatever bad
Yeah, it's like
decisions. But
I'm taking in
okay,
debt to just run a bunch of ads. Like that'd be crazy. Like this is like SBA just for like running ads. Like, like that'd be. Ugh.
right. So okay, well maybe we need to break that down because there's some people you're laughing. I remember I've seen a lot. So maybe we need to define what does leveraging debt correctly look like because see, I've heard of people which we never tell our clients to do, but they'll say, "Well, I need to take a loan to make payroll," and that would be one of those things
Mhm.
like that's a glaring issue of
Yeah.
saying you're not producing enough cash flow, or maybe we have some type of collections problem with our invoicing and AR because we shouldn't be taking out debt to pay bills. We should be using this leverage to I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, I was like, if you're just being like, hey, I'm just going to take a loan and use all of that on ads, was more of the joke. There are marketing expenses if you know what if you're making a gamble on the return you're going to get. Those would be actually something it's not the worst idea, especially when Cameron brought up like people using it for payroll or those types of things. That's you putting a band-aid on a bullet hole when you're doing that, when you're leveraging debt in those ways. But if you're leveraging debt as a part of your growth engine, and you're saying, hey, if only I could move faster, or that's when I think that's almost a litmus test for it. While I wouldn't be like, hey, go go blow all of this on ads. That'd be crazy. There is something to say about when you're like, what are the things that are holding you back from hitting your targets? And if it's truly just like, hey, this is a cash flow issue that I'm not able to invest. Well, one, it'd be like, look at why you have the cash flow issue in the first place. That'd be the first step. But then if you're really pushing into your growth engine, then yeah, like, heck yeah, use it, get it. Like, I can see, what is it? Most people need to be spending on marketing for their business. They need to be doing probably around 15-20% of top line. And if you don't have cash.
Whoa, sir, you dropping stats. Hold up. How much should you be spending on your marketing budget? Your answer is 15 to 20%.
Yep. Of your top line revenue, you should be looking at. And in some cases, like it's upwards of 30, depending on the industry you're in.
Because some people say it shouldn't be more than 10%.
Some people don't grow.
Okay. And I mean, again, this is why we quantify every guest. Like, we're not bringing y'all people who just, like, they just started last year. These are people who are doing it at a high level. And he's telling you, as somebody who's not only purchased and bought a company and is running it and has grown it and is on the $1 million, he's past it. We can't say that much.
Yep.
I ain't going to tell the next man business. You know what I'm saying? But he's telling you, if you want to get where you want to go, it needs to be a minimum of 15 to 20. So this means if you're trying to go aggressive, which to tie it into your finances, when we say aggressive, like he said, that 30% number, that means like this is not the year we're trying to show high profit. That's not what this game is. Yeah. This is, we're trying to maximize getting as many clients in the door. We'll worry about being profitable, so to speak, next year, because we won't have to invest as aggressively. So I just wanted to pause them because that was a super important stat. Marketing agencies in general, we need to be thinking 15 to 20%. If you're being aggressive, closer to 30. But that means you have to have the cash flow to pull said maneuvers. Continue.
Yeah, that's kind of the big one there. I think I'm glad you stopped me on that, because that was really kind of where I was going. If you're unable, and then kind of finishing that last thought. And so if you're unable and you don't have the cash to do that, first thing is look at the underlying reason you don't have the cash. And then two, like if you're like, hey, like if we scale these campaigns enough, if I was able to double, if you're in that 10% mark, if I was able to double my acquisition expense, and see like and maintain a level of performance. Obviously, you're going to get a little bit more inefficient whenever you increase budgets. You're going to see an increase generally in your CPA. But if it's within a range that you're comfortable with and you've modeled it out beforehand, then you should absolutely consider leveraging debt at that point. If you're kind of saying, hey, I'm so confident that this year that if I were to double down on all of my channels, that we could, quintuple the business if we do that. But you have to do that kind of work beforehand. You can't just say like, hey, Justin said it should be 20%, so I'm going to do what Justin said. It needs to be, hey, what are our current numbers looking like with our current marketing investment? What's our return on that investment? And what does it look like from a good, better, best scenario if we had the capabilities to go from 10 to 20% or 10 to 15% in terms of what we're allocating for that.
And mind you, think about what he said. You have to go to your team that already has this. This isn't and what gets us sometimes, like, I'd be in shock. I'm not going to lie. It's like they come in with these high goals of like, we want to sign 2 people and we want to give ourselves raises and we want to buy this company. And I'm like, okay, but you don't have any numbers to even start with. We have to build that out for you first. Then we got to come back and do projections. And then I can answer the question of what you can do and when in whatever quarter or whatever time period. Yeah. So I think it's super important to note that he's literally telling you the cheat code, numbers first. So you have a baseline to know, okay, first off, are we constantly profitable? Do we have access cash in the bank? Do we even have a line of credit available? So if we want to increase the marketing budget by, let's say that number for you may be $15,000 a month. Do you have an extra $15,000? Is this a one-time thing? Is this for the next 6 to 12 months? Like all of these different factors play a part, but as he said,
Yeah.
he's giving you the cheat code.
And it's wild. Like I have a story of when we didn't take advantage of this at one point, and it's one of those like I was proud. I was happy that my projection was correct, but was sad because we chose the do nothing option. So one of the things I was modeling out, and this was kind of an intense modeling project I was doing. This was back at Digital Marketer. We were looking at, okay, what's like based off of current churn of our of our subscription product, is Digital Marketer Lab. I think they named it Academy now, and they're going back to it. But based off of churn and acquisition numbers for trials and rollover rate from trials, and the amount spent on current ad spend, where do we start plateauing? And then based off of an additional like 5, 10, and 50% in ad spend, where could we expect to land? And when do we begin plateauing again? So it was a large exercise that I put together for that. And I pitched it, didn't get the approval for the funds, which is also the difference of when you're an entrepreneur versus an entrepreneur, you have people that are going to be like, no. And hey, no, like, and there's reasons why people say no to things. It's not like they're a jerk. They're not. I love those guys. But in this case, either I didn't make my position strong enough, or I didn't pitch it right, or I talked about the wrong thing. Either, whatever. But we didn't do it. We stayed static with spend, knowing that it was going to plateau at a certain level, and then at a stage we were going to see a decline in MRR of one of our flagship products. In I think it was 16 months. 16 months later, I decided to just pull that sheet up again. I put a reminder, like, Justin, check this thing in 16 months, see where you landed. And I in terms of where our MRR is at, I was within like 3% from a projection 16 months ago. So projections are so unbelievably critical, like making sure that you have clean numbers, the inputs for those. And I know numbers can be scary and those things, but you need to be okay with it's kind of like looking at a mirror. Like you got to look in these things. You got to keep in front of them, get used to them, get used to how they look. If they're like ugly, pretty, whatever, it doesn't matter. But get really comfortable with your numbers, know them, and know how to work them in a way that will inform you to make to make the calls that Cameron was just talking about. Because it's not just an exercise. This is quite literally one of the most important things you can be doing, and it's one of the things that people steer away from the most. So yeah, that's just kind of like my soapbox on that one.
When the accounting and finance guy says it, I get looked at funny, but I'm just saying, he said it, not me. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay. So now let's talk about teams, right? Because everybody talks about, how do you find this top tier A talent? And you got people trying to find somebody in the Philippines. Shout out to the Philippines, but they're trying to pay them $5 an hour, but expecting it to be top tier talent. There's some people that are like, U.S. growth all the way, not even trying to go overseas. Where do you kind of fall in this? And in your opinion, what is the best if you're trying to, let's just say, go on that aggressive growth? What would you say is the best option? So 2-part.
Man, that's a super hard one. So my entire career, whether it was pre-digital, like companies before Digital Marketer, some other side things I did in the software space for a while, and even now, I've worked with a hybrid model of in-house and offshore. So I want to be clear, like when I talk about I don't want to say outsource or anything along those lines, because whenever I had an offshore team, they weren't like a group of freelancers. They were people that were on staff. We had an entity out there. I remember one of the last things we were trying to do at DM for one of our other projects was actually build an entity out in Pakistan, which was very difficult to do. And it was a while. So that was a whole thing. But so I want to clarify between when you're looking for talent, I like to avoid freelancers like the plague. Because freelancers are great, do your thing. But my belief is that if people aren't focused exclusively on your business, you're competing with other people's deadlines, with other people's and with what's interesting to them, because some of the work they might be getting from other people might be stuff that they really enjoy doing. And then your stuff kind of keeps getting knocked down the ladder. So I like to avoid freelancers where possible. And I like to make sure that anybody that we're bringing on that's offshore or nearshore or anything along those lines, that they are 100% focused on our projects. So that's step one. Step two, if you're kind of in a mode where I mean, there's no one doesn't have budget restrictions. So to say you only want a talent is, I think, silly. A talent's very expensive. It's they're harder to manage because they'll have ways of doing things. And let's if you're new to managing people, a talent will be the biggest headache that you'll ever have, to be quite honest. They're going to have a lot of opinions and doing those types, but you need them in place. You need a way to work with them. But I get really annoyed when I hear people talking about, oh, hey, I only hire A players. It's like, you don't, and you can't. Shut up. You can't. No one can afford that at all.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That was hilarious.
It's really that simple.
They're coming from some top agency or whatever. They're confident, rightfully so, because they're a top tier player. But like you said, the budgeting aspect of that can be really hard on your payroll. And are they the right fit? We know anybody at this point can make a resume look great, but do they fit with the culture? Is your hiring process even to the point where you can quickly identify, can they easily fit? Do you have the right SOPs, et cetera? But keep going. That was fun.
Yeah. And I think, and really how you're going to get the right type of talent, it's going to come down to, we follow EOS. For the most part, we have some EOS light, but I love a good set of accountability bullets. What is the work to be done regularly, and how do you hold them accountable for that? And that's going to help you pick who I need. I know for a lot of our forward facing folks, we'll generally pull nearshore or in the US. Especially if they're working with clients head on. We do have a lot of great team members at IPPC in the Philippines. They're some of our best, and they're great account managers. But sometimes there is a benefit, and people in America love America, right? And they want Americans. So we got to make sure that we want to make sure we have those options for them. But but honestly, our staff is equally capable in any part of the world. I wrote a post on this about 2 years ago. I was getting annoyed on sales calls because one of the first things to do when we bought the company was I started taking every sales call that I could, so I could learn as fast about it. And I was getting a little annoyed when people would kind of bring that up. It's
wait, another cheat code. Wait, you gave us a cheat code. Now, the owner of the company took sales calls. He didn't say it was beneath him, get it off my plate. He chose to take them so that he could learn in an accelerated manner.
Oh gosh.
What are we doing? What's wrong? Who is our client? What are they really legit asking for? Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to speak for him in this case, but because knowing him and what he shared, hey, I want to know, our products working? What are they saying? Do we even have the actual things they're asking for? Or did we just make up some stuff that's kind of halfway doing the job? Hey, how is my sales team training? What are they saying versus what I prefer it to be? All of that from the owner. So don't be so quick to just, I'm big time and I'm the owner, etc.
Yeah. Keep going. That's one of the, that is the ultimate cheat code of them all. Of them all is taking sales calls. And I still do. I still have about maybe 5% of the sales calls still come to me because I want to stay on top. I want to know what's going on at any given time. And the best place where you can leverage, fortunately, one second, the dog wants to go outside. I'm going to open a door for him.
I'll cover it for you. I got you. Okay. So that's important because, and we've had people on here where they're like, well, I come in and I just do overall strategy. That's fine. But just know, for every company, it's going to be different. For people who are more inclined for sales or more people facing, that's their strong point and their gift. They're going to do things like Justin is saying. But then there are some people who are like, I like more back end, or I like more ops, or I'm a more product focused person. They're not going to do that. They're going to trust that their team has it and they've already hired or bring on the right person so that they can make sure all of those pieces are well. So there's not a right or a wrong way. Justin's just sharing what's worked for him to get them over the $1 million mark. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's back.
No, that's a good call out. I was actually in one of the masterminds I'm in. Somebody in Slack, I actually just pulled it up because I wrote a whole thing. I wrote a longer piece about this.
Wait a minute. Hold on. The $1 million agency owner is in a mastermind?
Heck yeah, I am. You got to.
What? Well, some people think like once you hit it, oh, I know it all. I don't need to. So I just want to point out
Oh
he's
yeah, and
smart enough to know.
I'm in several. I'm in several. Like the deal there is there's always like you only have a scope. You only get to see what you do day in day out. Getting diversity of thought in terms of how to approach new ideas, new concepts, new problems, and things. And even if they're not like if there aren't problems that you run into yet or issues that you'd be trying to solve immediately, it gives you a frame of reference, someone to talk to about it, and then and quite honestly, it like prepares you for when that problem comes up and when and like you can have it's for me it's that's another cheat code. It's you find a group of people who are like either at your same like that are like one or two standard deviations away from where you are. So you don't want to try and join like the ones where it's like, oh, it's only like not like eight figure plus, like, and you're like trying to vie for seven figures. You want to talk to people who can remember what it was like to be in your space in the last couple of years, right? You want them to have that scope, right? Because it's easy for us to forget what it was like previously over time, right? Like our memories get muddled like that, like just humans in general are really poor in terms of memories. Like the whole concept of like remembering something is you don't remember it the first time, like it's you recall the last time you remembered it. So think about like 5-6 years ago, you would have thought of that thing several times and it would have been tainted every time. So it's a copy of a copy of a copy, right? So that's a little like whatever, but something to think about. And that's why you want to be in groups with people that are doing not like you wouldn't want to be in a group with like, hey, I'm with Richard Branson. You don't want to be in that mastermind. That'd be ridiculous. He's not in one, but that was just a whatever. Anybody who'd be like a keynote speaker at an event generally wouldn't want to be in those masterminds because they're not going to be able to speak to you in a way where it's like, oh, I remember what that was like when I was doing this. It'd be like it'd be the same as like at TNC this year, like Damon John was speaking, which is great. Damon's awesome, like he's a cool dude. But it was very hard for him to connect to the crowd because he's so far away at this point from when he was at that same point. So you want to catch people in those references. But yeah, what I brought up when someone was asking, they said, hey, if you were to start your business all over again, knowing what you know now, who would be your first hire and why? In other words, add a little context regarding what you do about this whole hiring thing, right? And so what I shared was, hey, there's a few ways to look at this one. But I think your first hire would be someone who takes the drudge work off your plate. That's the first thing. So EA, VA, anything along those lines. But what I would recommend is when you're looking at that type of work and you're categorizing the type of work that you're doing, you want to pick, and it's your first like true hire, who has a superpower that's opposite of you, right? You need to be aware of your blind spots and your weaknesses. So if you're good at selling, hire someone good at fulfilling. If you're good at selling, hire someone good at operations. If you're great at operations and that stuff, get someone that's good at talking to people, right? And doing those. So find your opposite, right? Which is tough because sometimes it's like if you're that opposite, it's hard to connect, right? And another hiring trick, and I know this one just popped in my head, which is a little off tangent, but it's something that I remembered recently. Because we used to do at Teamwork, we used to do like even like, profiles of people, like personality profiles and those things, in which I don't think legally you can use in like as like a disqualifier. So just careful. But just something to think of. If you always hire people you like, there's a reason you like them because they hold on to like certain attributes that are probably connecting you, like that are like, and like, what is it? Like the Jungian archetypes, you might have somebody that's more like blue, right? And so you're going to probably find a lot of blue people, which means they're all going to be really strong in one space, but not in the other, right? So don't use liking in the conventional sense as like a reason to hire somebody. Like, are they respectful? Can they get the job done? Do they fit into culture? Those are things that matter. But you're not going to like everybody, even if it's your business. You're not going to personally be like, man, like that person, love that person. Because if you did, you just hire a one-dimensional company that does not grow. It just can't. Right? So know who you are, know what your strengths are, and hire the opposite.
Okay. So there you go for team. Now, how do I want to word it? You know what? I'm not going to stay on teams because I think we got more good stuff. Okay. Let's go to, I'm going to say, let's go back to when you talked about your finance person, because apparently they're giving you these projections, which is a great thing. So, can you tell us, like, what are some cool things that they're either doing for you or suggesting that's
Hmm.
helping you to continue to reach these goals, grow the company, etc.?
Yeah, I mean,
And it
I
doesn't
don't
have
think
to be
there's
like crazy.
yeah, I don't think there's anything like earth shattering here. I mean, just the fact that we have somebody else to look at that and almost like at any given time, like I'm going to have some weird questions about something. Like if we're doing a quarterly review, or like we look at all of our kind of stats weekly and then do more of a review monthly. So we're on top of everything. We're very close to everything. Like I like to know where's cash at every week. I want to know exactly where that is. And then like in terms of both where are we landing with expenses, where are we landing with revenue, like what projected revenue were we expecting by this point in time in the month. Those are the types of things that like of questions I like answered at any given time. Because we have such predictable revenue, I can know if something's off very quickly. If I go into our daily revenue sheet and see the graph and it's like projected and actual for that day is off, for that accumulated or the culmination or the cumulative days to that point in the month. So the stuff that we ask her to do is like, hey, make sure that you have all projections for the rest of the and assume no growth. So assume nothing happened this month. We can flip the light switch on February 1st and we know we're getting that money through February 29th this year, right? That's the figure I want to know at any given point in time. And then we can augment that with, hey, now we've signed, 15 more clients. Great. So we can start seeing where that's at and then compare that to, any sort of lost revenue that comes through. So that's the biggie, because I always want to have a pulse on that, and then also just pulse on spending. Like, hey, where are we at in terms of kind of cash going out the door? Because if you can predict that, like then you're in a better spot. Obviously, you don't want to get so tight, like kind of like alligator armed with your finances that you're not spending on growing the business. But I like to make sure that on the line item for like our fixed for our variable expenses, like what the heck's going on at that point in time.
Gotcha. Okay. What has been your best investment to date that's produced the greatest ROI?
Oh, buying the company.
Mm.
I think that could be that's kind of, it's true, but it's also kind of a silly answer, and I don't think it's useful for people. What would be a more useful answer? Best ROI.
Well, I mean, this is your podcast. You can make it your answer. It don't have to be useful for them.
Well, I want something that's also applicable, but like something that let me frame the question a little differently and see if it comes out. Like, would it be like investment in anything in the company? Let's say I'm going to keep it scoped to something we bought for the company, personal, like
No, it can be
personnel or anything.
personal. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, no, I think the big thing that we really, some of our best return comes into into our kind of event spend. So whenever we go to like curated events, like this isn't just, hey, go to every marketing conference. This isn't, hey, go to any of these, but like when we pick curated events and that like, to go to like making sure like high level for us, like high levels event is always good for us. And, it's both time and money, but it brings us more accounts. It keeps the brand going. It has the intangibles as well. So that's been a really great return. And I think the other side is just we did finally, like, we were living in that 10% world, even though I know we should have been 15-20% of our spend. And we were asking ourselves, why did growth kind of slow in some of the stages? And so we did kick that spend up again. And almost immediately we're seeing, I guess really 3 weeks after, because our sales cycle is about that long. We started seeing some really positive indicators kind of at the start of this year. So that's also that too. So I think two areas would be,
Okay.
re-events and spending more money on ads.
Okay. All right. This is one of my new favorite questions.
Let's
Now,
hear it.
you've already done it, but if let's say Cameron Marketing Agency is starting, or they've been in business 2, 3 years,
Mhm.
what are the top 3 things you would tell this new agency to not do in order to get to that $1 million?
Ooh, geez, that's a tough
Mm.
one. Um, One, I mean, you said this one already. Like, if it's like, don't think anything's beneath you. So take on whatever you can. And I think the other thing is too, it's, you need to have, it's going to, like, some exercises are going to feel really silly, like making sure, like when you're hiring, like having like SOPs in place, like, but you need that because if you hire anybody, they need to have clarity on what they need to be doing. And if you can't give that to them, you're never going to grow because you're just going to be, they're essentially just be an extension of you, but not a multiplying factor. So you need to make sure that when you're bringing folks in, that you have very clear sets of guidelines for them, because if you don't, like, they'll never be as invested in your business as you. So like, they're not going to be thinking about it as much in the off hours. Like, and in some cases, if they don't have skin in the game, they shouldn't be. Hate to break it to you. But they're, it's a job, right? It's not their life. So make sure that you have, that you don't project like ownership mentality onto some of those hires unless you're giving them ownership. And that'll make life a lot better for you, in terms of how you hold people accountable. And then when kind of like when you have to make hiring, firing, decisions. So I think having those things in place is a big one, so you can, kind of get an output that's acceptable, making sure to hire for things that are outside of your main strength. And then the other thing you just really shouldn't do, um, they're just, don't chase shiny objects. I think probably most people will tell people this. Like, there's a million ways to I guess there's a million ways people approach building businesses, but there's 3 ways to do it. And it's, get more customers, get them spending more, get them spending again. It's the only 3 things. So anything that you're doing that doesn't directly correlate to one of those things, don't do it. So I guess it's kind of that simple.
Laser focus. Laser focus. I like it. I like it. Okay. Now, what are some things you do? Because I mean, at this point, it's not like you're. I mean, how do I want to say it? At this point, I mean, you have a super successful business, which requires a ton of your time, energy,
Mhm.
and focus. So, what are some things you do to connect, like with the family, with Babe? If you have kids, with the kids throughout the week, or is it like every Friday we do this, or every Saturday we eat this? Like, what are some of those things so that you can keep that balance?
Yeah, and for me, I think this is still a lot of learnings going on right now, because I went from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, like in the last like 2.5 years, 3 years at this point. I Even when, like, I definitely at DM, like, I definitely treated it as if I was an owner, and so I think my work life balance was not the best, but I still made sure, like, have at least one day a week that's like for friends. So like we've been having this for the last almost, what, gosh, maybe when did COVID happen? That was 2019,
20.
right?
No,
2020.
that was like 20 or 21.
Okay, whenever that started, one of our group we had a group of friends. There was 6 of us, so 3 couples, and every Wednesday one couple would cook dinner, and then we were like our pod back then. And then when restrictions went away, we just kind of kept doing it. And so we've always had like that kind of break in the week where you get to see kind of like your closest group of friends, and spend it with your significant other. It was a lot of fun, and it's something that we've kept to this day, because I think it was good for everybody, from like a just gives a good break in the week. Reminds you there's more going on reminds me there's more going on than just the business and those types of things. And then, yeah, like, try to have some sort of outing or activity like on the weekend. Like, so try to get out of the house, do something. But it's not as, I know some people hold like all these amazing schedules where like, oh, on this day we do this, this, this. I'm less focused on that. It's been like, hey, just try to carve out, be intentional about carving out time. It's less of like when though.
I got you. I got you. Okay. Okay. Shout out to Babe, by the way. We thank you for giving us this time to spend with your wonderful husband. Okay. Let's get in the time machine.
All
And
right.
if we could go back in time, you had 30 seconds to talk to college Justin or high school Justin. And you knew everything like to this day, like 2024. What would you go back and tell him? 30
Ooh,
seconds.
30 seconds. I'd say, even though they say you're not going to get a job with a philosophy degree, keep doing it. Carve out some time to learn to code a little bit. Not code itself, code a little bit. Make sure that you understand the technical side of those things, and invest in Bitcoin. Like, I don't know at that point, but I
Wait, so
wouldn't.
you got
Go
a
ahead.
philosophy degree?
I do.
How do you think that's helped you be a business owner, a better business owner?
Um, it's always forced me to understand like it, because I mean philosophy is all a dialectic. It's all like thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and so it's taught me how to have those conversations and to come up with something significantly better than can be done just in terms of introspection or just one belief. On top of that, it also helped that like logic. I love logic in general. I was the head TA at my university. I was teaching undergrad while an undergrad, which was cool. And I ended up getting like into shoehorning into some like level of advanced mathematics when I kind of got into the higher level things there. So that was a cheat code there because it's all very like every automation tool out there, they're all based on logic, and there isn't an automation tool I can't use even if I've never used it. That's really helped me there as well because email is definitely one of my love languages in the business world. So that's been a thing there. But yeah, I think philosophy always kind of helped me be less dogmatic, and also taught me how to take advanced concepts and then try to wean them down to their essence so that it could be so I can explain things clearly, succinctly for people whose language isn't first language isn't English and that they can follow tight structures. So I think that those things all really, really help me out.
Okay. Now I would keep going, but I know you gotta save the world. So
Yeah.
that being said, this is the end part. So this is where you tell people again, name, business
Yep.
name. How can they get in touch with you? What's your best social media if they want to reach out? Who's your niche? Who you serve? Like this is the super spotlight of
I love it.
come work with IPC.
I
So
love
you
it.
got the
So
floor.
awesome. So if I'm saying it again by now, that means you haven't been looking on the screen, but I'm Justin Rondo again. So president at Invisible PPC. Invisible PPC, we work exclusively with marketing agencies that have local service clients. If you don't know if that's you, go check out the website invisibleppc.com. We have a sheet of our most successful niches that we've had in the past almost 12 years of the company being its existence. We have probably the largest database of just ads in general in terms of ad performance, like positive keywords, negative keywords, ad creative, landing pages, everything. Like we just have more of that within our database than I think anybody else out there. So if you're looking for a shortcut and you need support running ads for your clients, definitely come check us out. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. I answer pretty much everybody that reaches out to me, assuming that they're not just an SDR that's coming there. So hit me up on LinkedIn. Check out IPPC. And if you're looking to chat, shoot me an email, justin@invisibleppc.com. If you have more questions about our services, if you have questions about just agency life, whatever, like I'm here to support. And yeah, I think those are the main high points there.
All right. Told y'all we going to get the best. And you see, this is one of the best right here. So just a quick recap. I'm going back to my notes. So when thinking about purchasing a business, always pinpoint the certain things that matter to you. In his case, strong MRR, great brand recognition, longevity and future proofing of the business. Like, will this still be here 5, 10, 15 years from now? Will the niche or industry that I'm serving still be here? He talked about leveraging debt correctly, making sure that we're not just doing stuff to be doing stuff, using it to pay payroll, but can we use this to invest in something that will then push us forward that much faster? That he also talked about the cheat code is buying another business the right way, by the way.
Yeah.
He talked about the importance of knowing your numbers and how being able to look forward and project, also while keeping your current numbers correct and active, are super important so that you can stay trending in the direction you want to go. He talked about how to hire the right team, which ones should be more client facing, which ones are better on the back end, when is it smart to hire A+ players versus sometimes you don't need an A+, you just need a worker bee. So much goodness in this episode. Make sure you guys share it. Tag a friend who needs to hear this, somebody who's on their way to $1 million. This is a great episode to listen to. Justin, thank you so much for coming on. Any last words to the people?
No, thank you so much. And please do, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to chat with him more, email me, please. I will answer it. It's not going to a VAA. It's not going anywhere. That is my email address. Will be going right to my inbox. So if you got any value out of this and you just want to say what's up, that'd be awesome. Shoot me a message. If you have questions, need anything, please do take me up on this. Not enough people do, and it makes me a little sad. So I'd love to hear from you.
Okay. So with all that being said, y'all, until the next episode, we can't wait to talk to you guys again, share some more value. Justin, thank you again so much for coming on. Until the next time we see you guys, take care of yourselves, stay safe. Peace.